This is season 1, episode 5 of the Money Talks, Money Matters podcast featuring Max Fisher.
Fish.
Sorry.
No, it's all good.
Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and you taking your time to invite me over here. I'm just looking forward to talking a little bit about what I love to do and what I do on a daily basis. So really appreciate it, guys.
Of course.
So how'd you get started in mortgages?
So I actually was a teacher. I was a math teacher. And so I've kind of always been nerdish with math. But I didn't like accounting. I didn't like just sitting behind a desk and financial, advising and things of that nature. So I kind of wanted to find an avenue where I could mix my sociability, I guess, if you'd like to call it that, and my love for, just sitting down and problem solving and figuring out how to, make numbers work and put those two things together. And, it kind of just came together. Mortgages was one of those things where I could kind of integrate both.
Yeah. So starting off young, you didn't want to go in the mortgage business. This is
No.
assuming so.
No.
So it's what was the flip? I know you want to be you were a math teacher, but was there a mentor in your life? Was there just your parents' influence? Who really truly pushed you?
Well, so I grew up, I knew a lot of realtors. And so I was familiar with the industry. One of my best friends, Steve Boyette, owns his own brokerage. So I was just, and my parents are realtors too. So I was familiar with the industry. I understood kind of the surfacey level of, I guess the industry as a whole. But nobody really pushed me into mortgages, man. I kind of I'm an impulsive person. So I kind of just was like, hey, I think I can use my strengths to pursue this, and kind of just jumped in.
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you that somebody was, hey, you should do this, you'd be good at it, but I kind of just jumped
found
into
something
it.
and tried it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So then since working with Steve, he's big full-time real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
Why haven't you been or even got your license yourself?
Gotten my license
for real estate to be an agent?
Oh, because I work closely with realtors. That's my business, and that's where I get my business from. And I feel for a couple of reasons. Number one, I feel it would be a malpractice, right? Because why would I want to compete with my business partners? That's not a good model for good business, in my opinion. And number two, I feel that if I was vested in my own self-interest in that way, I couldn't support them as realtors in their business, to the fullest extent. And that's kind of what I like to pride my business on. You do what you're really good at, and I'll do what I'm really good at, and let's put it together. I'm not really, I'm about doing something 100%, not doing a bunch of things 50%. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I have a question. So how many things have you tried before you got into mortgages?
So like I said, I was a teacher, and I was a football coach. And so that's what I did coming out of college. But before I got into mortgages, I was thinking about doing some financial advising. I was thinking about doing life insurance, and I was studying for that exam and all these different things. But it never really panned out. Mortgages was one of those things that stuck, and I felt like I could really excel at and pursue. So not really much. I'm not that old. I'm older than you guys, but I'm 26. So there hasn't been that much time to pursue different avenues. I've kind of just, done a couple of things.
But for you, I'm assuming the long term is mortgages.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I've found where I'm supposed to be. And I really believe that I built a business so far to a point where I feel like it's sustainable, and I can do this for a career.
Now, the most important thing that we talk about here is how do you use something to leverage yourself to the next chapter in your life? And that's meaning, how are you going to use mortgages to, I would say, place yourself better from a year now, 2 years now, 3 years from now? Do you have sort of a business plan or a business model that you want to kind of carry out through the rest of your life?
Yeah, no, of course. So mortgages and real estate, they're great when it's good, right? So you can make a lot of money, you can make a lot in commission, but it's not like insurance. There's no passive income. So when I do a loan for someone and close a loan, that's great, handshake. But unless they buy another house or know somebody that will, which is, that's likely, but I wouldn't consider that passive income. Unless they do that, you're done. Now it's on to the next.
Yeah.
There's no reoccurring income from that. So being in the industry and learning the ins and outs of financing, because I think financing of property is a major player in all of this. There's not that many people that are just walking around with enough cash to build a real estate empire. So financing and leveraging yourself like you're talking about is important. So, just having an understanding of the ins and outs of that has helped me create a plan, which I'm currently in the middle of, carrying out the beginning stages of that plan, of eventually, owning more and more rental properties, having the capital to do so because, fortunately for me, there's a lot of money to be made in this industry. And just understanding how I can go about doing that. That's what mortgages has done, is given me capital and given me knowledge to be able to go out and create a more passive stream of income in the future.
Yeah.
So, because you can't be on the daily grind like this, the rest of your life.
Yeah. Correct.
Correct. Nor should you be.
Where do you see yourself stemming off, like financially, after you create a solid foundation with your mortgage company?
Yeah.
Your mortgage businesses.
Yeah.
How do you see yourself investing into more real estate? Do you see yourself going more into stocks, mutual funds? Like, how do you see you managing your finances? So I'm all about, with my finances, putting my money into an area that I know. Okay. I would never lie to you and tell you that I'm an expert about stocks, right? So I'm not going to put my money there.
Correct.
Right. So, and I think that's a problem. I'm sorry to go off on a tangent, but
go.
I think that's a major problem in our society today, because money is coming easy. And I think that it's causing a poor mindset, that you can put money into places that you have no idea the ins and outs of, and it spits back out money at you, because it's not always like that.
I definitely agree with you, especially with the whole culture where everyone's selling an online course. Everyone and their mom is selling an online course, and do this, do ETFs, do single stocks, buy duplexes. Everyone's preaching their own truth, which is okay, but I definitely agree with you that. And also they preach diversify, make sure you do different types of things, and there's very broad statements being put out there. And yeah, I think that's a really good point that you say, like, only do what you know. But where do you see the difference of the line where you say, because you still have to learn, you're always constantly learning, so you're gonna know more stuff down the line. Where do you cap off saying, I'm not gonna do that because I don't know it and I want to learn more of that? If that makes sense. Well,
I think that we all have the capacity to learn about something, and if you do, then maybe that becomes an avenue for you to invest in, or to, a door to walk through that maybe previously you didn't think that you were going to. So I can't 100% tell you that I'll never be in the stock market. Maybe there's going to be a point in my life where I'm like, full go ahead, like I'm going to learn everything in the ins and outs about the stock market. But to answer your original question, I see myself investing in something that I know and that I'm a professional in and that I'm an expert in. Right now, that's real estate.
Yeah,
right? So,
exactly.
So if I look into the future, that's where I think that my money is going to go. And I've already started doing that, and you can't go wrong with it. I mean, I don't know the statistic. I could sit here and make one up for you, but I don't know the statistic, but I would almost guarantee you that the wealthiest people, in our country and around the world all own real estate. Yeah. I mean, they all do. I mean,
it's like the fundamentals to wealth practically.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think you can go wrong with becoming an expert in that area and sticking to that,
Yeah. So, and I don't know if you know, but you recently partnered up with Steve, and now you both brought a duplex, meaning that it's half and half. You guys are forming an LLC, if I'm right.
Correct.
And my question is just running through my head, like, why both invest your time and money into it instead of just kind of singling it out of, I want this property, I want this, I want this, I want this, instead of taking on both liabilities of you and Steve?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple reasons. Number one, risk, right? It lowers your risk because you have less investment. For example, if you go into an investment property and you put, you need 20% down. If there's two people, you're only investing 10%. If it was all yourself, you're risking 20. right? So it's less risk. But the main reason is because Steve and I, I wouldn't advise people going into rental property or business with people that maybe they don't fully trust or fully know or really, really understand how they work, right? Steve and I've known Steve for 15 plus years. So I know, how he works, how he thinks, how he likes to do things. And I think that's key in a business partnership. But also, he's an expert in an area of real estate that I'm not. And vice versa, I'm an expert in an area of real estate that he's not. So putting our two expertise together,
I like that,
creates a team where we can really maximize, the return that we get out of these investment properties. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah,
it does. So since I love to talk about this on the podcast, who is your like influence? Like who do you look up to? Like who is your mentor, and like how do they help, and like why?
So I have a couple of mentors. Steve would be one of them. Like I said, I've known him for 15 plus years. He is actually 8 or 9 years older than me. I forget exactly which one, but as we get older, that's not as significant. But when I was 10 and he was 18, that was pretty significant.
Yeah.
So he would definitely be one of them. I've always looked up to him and how he's been able to develop his business and his family structure. That's awesome. Definitely my dad. Growing up, my dad was very present. He was like how they normally have class moms. He was a class dad, going on field trips and things of that nature, and taught me a lot about what I know about finances and about my spirituality and my beliefs. He is definitely somebody that I really look up to and really admire for the person he was, the father, the husband, the brother, everything that came along with him. So
did you grow up with like a kind of like a wealthy background? Were you ever kind of just like lifted up and polished in a way?
No, I mean my parents did well. They always were business owners. But they owned an interior landscaping business. But when 2008 happened, every business that they were in, I mean, I wouldn't say every one of them, but a lot of them, they didn't do interior landscaping anymore. Everybody got fake plants and fake landscaping, and so their business, it suffered through that. So those were like the critical years of my life. I mean, in 2008, you're talking about 8th grade, through high school. But my parents, they always found ways, but I wouldn't say by any means I grew up wealthy, but, to the world standards, I was very wealthy. To all around the globe, I was very wealthy. I always had food on the table. I as a kid never worried about it, if that's what you're if that's what you're getting at. But
you mentioned something about spirituality. How do you balance your spirituality with your business, and you can talk about that?
That's actually a super, super good question. It's difficult because I am a Christian. I am of that belief. I have been since I was little, and I've tried to incorporate that in all the areas of my life. But sometimes in business, it can be difficult. I mean, the business world is a very secular industry for the most part.
Yeah.
So
correct.
It's it can be all about manipulation. It can be about smoke screens and you have to be selfish in certain areas and so early on in my business, obviously I don't have years and years and years under my belt, so I'm sure there'll be obstacles and hurdles where I have to balance it even more. But early on in my business, I've just tried to stay true to who I am and my beliefs. And listen, if that means I lose a buck, then that's what it means.
I really wanted to ask that because I saw the crosses on your tattoos.
Yeah.
It's really cool, by the way.
No, I appreciate it.
I'm a Christian as well, and I'm going into business and everything like that. So I agree with you on that, where sometimes the Bible will say one thing, but the business ethics and the practice that you may have will say another thing, and you might have to duck under and maybe lose out and do it just so you don't step on someone's face. But you feel better at the end of the day, I think.
It's worth it 100% of the time.
Because you're in this for the long term, and if you don't want to feel like a crappy person going out through the entire career.
Correct. That's a very good question.
So I'm just going to go back and piggyback to what you said. You said that you're new to the industry, but I know you're new, but what's one thing that you really wish that you knew before you started this whole entire ordeal?
What's one thing I wish I knew? There's a lot
or even wish you did, or even wish you didn't do.
Yeah, I could tell you I wish I would have gotten in this industry sooner.
Okay.
I'll tell you that. I wish I didn't take as long to do it. I think one of the things that I wish that I knew was just, how to better serve people in a way to where, you don't have to come across as salesy. I mean, when you first get into business, you feel like you just have to sell everyone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think
100%.
along the way that, in the beginning, that can ruin certain relationships that I look back on and I'm like, man, I wish I would have handled that differently because, it's not, to be honest with you, a lot of these people are pitching, this is how you sell. This is how you sell. It's really, really, people love to feel like you're just being yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that you're not trying to sell, that you really believe that what you're doing for them is good for them.
Yeah.
Right.
Authenticity is key.
And so to answer your question, I know I kind of just went around in a loop, but to answer your question, I think that I wish that I would have been told that, or I wish I would have known that before hopping into this, because I do think that I compromised some relationships early on. Does that make sense? By trying to be too salesy, too pushy.
Yeah, when I look into some of the best salespeople, they take their clients on a golf course rather than to another business office.
Correct.
They almost establish a friendship, and it is a weird thing where you're not going to be best friends with them, but you are genuine people around each other, and you can talk about your family and not just whatever the deal is happening. And some of the realtors that I've talked to, because when I first started, I'm a real estate photographer, by the way.
Oh, nice.
And when I got into working with realtors, I would ask them, because I want to learn different things, and say, how did you become such a good salesperson? And some of the top agents will say, I'm not a salesperson.
Yeah.
I'm more in the customer service field where you help them find their goals. And that really transformed the word sales for me, because at the end of the day, there is techniques that you can use and everything like that. But when you're a really genuine human, it's really cool to.
Correct. Yeah. That's key.
Yeah. And also, I'm just going to talk about schooling. And I do this every podcast, and I just want to know your thoughts on the whole school system and how if things should be changed, if there should be a financial course, if there should be this, if there should be that. So what's your whole philosophy on it?
So this might be a long-winded answer because I actually feel passionate about this area.
Okay.
Well
as us.
Yeah, I was a very system kid. So if you asked me in high school, I was gonna tell you, college is mandatory for everyone. And you need to get your 4-year degree, then you need to get your master's, and then I was going to get my doctorate, right? And I was just very system. And then I was going to leave school and be able to make all this money, right? And that was the way for success in the country, right? I couldn't be more opposite now, because I look back on it, and I got a full ride to college. Okay, I could have done whatever degree I wanted. I could have done it for free.
Academic? Or
academic.
Okay.
Yeah, and I could have done it anything that I wanted for free. But I soon realized that unless you were a doctor, an accountant, computer science, or maybe I'm missing a few more, you're boxing yourself, because in order to be an accountant, you have to have an accountant degree. Right?
Correct.
In order to be a doctor, you need to go to medical school. For people that, and I hope I'm not offending anyone, but for people that are going for and I'm talking to myself here. I was one of those people.
Yeah.
For people that are going for business, why? You get what I mean? Why are you doing that? Because take it from somebody who was a system person, who, if I was doing what I wanted to do, maybe I'd be making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year. Right now, I'm making 10 times that, and I didn't need a college degree for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Nor did it help me at all. I wish I could sit here and tell you, college really taught me how to manage my time. No, it didn't.
Yeah.
No, it didn't. I had so much free time, and I goofed off during my free time. So, it didn't teach me that, right?
Yeah.
I was taught that by getting into the workforce, right? So, I'm not trying to discredit college. I think it's good for a lot of people, a lot of people. But it's funny you asked me that, because I'm I'm the opposite of a system person at this point in my career and in my life. And I look back on it and I'm like, I know we've spoken a couple times, Sean. I'm like, man, you're doing it right.
Yeah.
You know, because I think that you're going to really start reaping the benefits.
Just because, I mean, it started off young when I was 15 or 16, and then I'm talking to my stepdad. He was a lawyer who went to like the University of Miami, who went there for 8 years, and he's still to this day paying off his college tuition, and he's not even doing law. He's not even doing law anymore. He's teaching. So now he needs to go on a separate degree of teaching degree.
Yeah.
And it's like why handicap yourself like that?
Well, there's some crazy statistic that like I think it's like 75 or 80% of people end up doing something different than they got their college degree anyways.
Everyone at the brokerage, everyone at Blue Realty, majority of them went to college. None of them used a single lick of
I know.
Of college.
Exactly. So I think that our society just pushes that on us, you know, as kids, because, you know, our society has some ulterior motives sometimes. I mean, think about how much like student debt there is.
Yeah.
You know, think about how much that funds different programs and things of that nature. And it's like, it's kind of like, if you think about it, it's kind of like scammy.
Really
scammy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
but that's the thing. So I remember, my initial goal going to ninth grade when I was in high school, and then I wanted to be going to MIT to be an engineer. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And one, I didn't know how much work it actually took to be an engineer and like what it really took for that. But on the same sense, I thought I was going to high school to get great teachers and really teach me how to live a good life and do certain things. And the first day of high school, like, this is it? This is what everything's everyone's busting their face off just to get perfect grades. Like, you guys are wasting your entire 4 years on that. And sure, I could have worked a little bit harder in school. I'm not going to say, because I did goof off a little bit. But I found the best mentors. I got to do crazy job opportunities because maybe I didn't focus so much on my grades, but I focused on life instead. I was like, what am I really going to do after college? Because I know if I'm in photography and I'm doing videography and things like that, college isn't going to serve me. I can go to film school, but I don't really want to go to Hollywood. I want to go into the more commercial space. So nothing could click, but everyone's like, no, you still need to go to college, but they couldn't tell me why. And I was like, please explain your reason. Like, because it's necessary. It's like, explain your reason. They would never get a little more below the surface. It's really kind of scammy how they push it on you, because when it's a scam when they can't tell you why. Yeah, that's how I always say things.
I have an interesting perspective. I don't know if you ever heard this before. I think I heard it from somewhere. I don't know where though. Think about this for a second. What makes an A student an A student? Is it because they're creative and they think outside of the box? No, it's because they're good at following rules.
Correct.
That's what makes A students A students.
Yeah.
Right? I was an A student. And it was because in high school, I was good at following rules. I knew how to get good grades. C students, a lot of the times, and that's why I read a book one time. It's called A Students Work for C Students. Because C students, typically, they're the ones that aren't, you know, they're thinking about something else. They're not paying attention sometimes. You know, they're not fitting the checklist box when you turn in a project that they had to meet. But a lot of the times those types of students, and take it from a teacher, I was a teacher. A lot of times those types of students, they grow up to be, you know, the business owners, right? And the people that are at the top of wealth in this country, because they think outside of the box. They think differently. They're not thinking like structured and system and I'm going to go be an employee. They're thinking I'm going to go be an employer. Right. And so just a different, that's like a perspective that I have.
And
I definitely agree with that.
I would say majority of them are like following the rat race right now, which you kind of escaped. So I mean, congrats on you. Yeah. And I feel like what you do, he has to fix the camera. It's like kind of shut up every like 30 minutes.
It's all good.
But what I see on your Instagram is like ABC, always be closing. Like you are closing every day. Do you want to just like talk about like how many deals you are closing, or like just maybe just any insight in that?
Sure. So I have been blessed in my business. So far this year, in the first 5 months, I did 31 million in loans. And that's not including any team production. That's just myself. And I was actually just ranked in the state and in the country. I was ranked top 10 in the state of Florida and top 150 in the country
Awesome. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, for loans closed with the number one wholesale lender in the country. So yeah, I mean, like I said, my business has been blessed. I'm hiring more people almost daily, and yeah, I mean, I have a couple closings today and 4 more tomorrow. So
got it. Now, since we're talking to like a mortgage, like the Yoda of mortgages out here, can you just explain mortgages to people who have zero understanding? Because like most people who like watch this or even listen to it, like when they hear mortgages, it goes out one ear, out the other.
Yeah.
So
sure. So like I said, there's very few people walking around with the amount of capital and money to be able to just purchase a home cash, right? Nor do I think in this environment is it smart to do that, because you could probably take that money and make more in investments than you could saving 2% in interest, right? But so just mortgages, synopsis, they're just, the banks are lending you money, are letting you finance part of your home. You're still the owner, but they're lending you money to be able to purchase your home. Now, you do have to have some vested interest, which is your down payment. The banks are going to require you to have some sort of vested interest, which prior to 2008, they didn't make you do, by the way.
Really?
There was a lot of mortgage programs where you could do 100% financing.
Oh my God.
So you didn't have to put anything down. You didn't have any equity in your home. So could you imagine, let's say the market's crazy right now, right? So let's say you buy an $800,000 home, okay? And you do 100% financing. So you don't have any equity. You just bought it for $800,000. Something happens to the market, which over history it happens, it dips. And now your house is worth $700,000, but you still owe $800,000.
Yeah.
You have no equity. So now what happens? You owe $100,000 that you don't have in your house. And if you can't afford to make your mortgage payments and you can't sell it for $800,000, you owe the bank $100,000 and you have no equity. Wow. So that's what happened to a lot of people. And so just to answer your initial question, it's just as simple as the bank lending you money to help purchase your home.
Now, I like in 2008, if I'm wrong or not, they had like AA, like it was AAA, it was AA, and those BB, like for like bonds, correct? Or like mortgage bonds.
Yes, they're still mortgage bonds and backed securities.
Okay, so has anything changed since then? Because again, like when I was in 2008, I was like 4 or something.
Yeah, well, I was 14.
Okay, but like
yeah, I know.
You
about
have more
08.
knowledge than me.
Yeah, of course, I know about 2008. I mean, a lot. Even when you take the mortgage test now, a lot of the course is referring and referencing to 2008. Which is sad. That they have to develop, rules and guidelines and courses just dedicated to that. A lot of what goes on now in the mortgage industry wasn't around back in 2008. And again, I wasn't doing this back in 2008, but I know from, colleagues and doing research about what was going on, rules and regulations and guidelines, they're all different now. I mean, when people purchase a home now, you can be confident that they're qualified to purchase that home, that they can afford to purchase that home. Back then, people were getting houses that weren't qualified, that couldn't afford it. And that's what caused the issues. So yeah, to answer your question, the mortgage industry was just flipped upside down. Everything's different. I mean, I could talk to you for like an hour about what's different,
That's interesting. I didn't know any of that though. As far as like the 800,000 going to 700,000.
Yeah, that's what happened. People were upside down in their houses.
And I would say a great movie to watch that explains it perfectly is The Big Short, which you've probably seen it.
Yes, I have.
Amazing.
Amazing. Yeah, it
like it tells the tale so well.
Yeah. So, like just to piggyback off of you referencing that, if you want to buy an $800,000 house right now, let's just say you put 20% down. Well, you have vested equity. You have equity in that property. So if the value drops, you still probably have a little bit of equity in that property, where if you needed to sell, you're not going to owe the bank hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah. And that's key. It's key. Back in 2008, somebody like you could go say, I need a $900,000 loan, and they may have figured out a way to give it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just not, I can't even fathom how that was allowed to be going on.
Yeah.
It's insane to me.
And also what I can't fathom is this market right now. I mean, like everything is at an upcharge. Everything is at an upward. It's either cash or not cash. If you're not putting more than like 15 to 20% down, what are you doing? So have you been flourishing in this market with mortgages, or do you do better when it's kind of more conservative?
Well, I wish that I could give you more perspective on that. When I first got into the business, it was right before COVID. So it went from rates were super low. Everybody was refinancing right before COVID, right? And it went from, wow, that you couldn't have gotten in at a better time, to when COVID hit and everything shut down, everybody's like, wow, you couldn't have gotten in at any worse of a time, and nothing was happening. But then the people that were really hustling and really out there trying to get business during COVID were the people that were flourishing afterwards.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I don't know if, I guess there's probably a part of my business that's a product of the market that we're in, because I am doing well, but I'd like to think that the practices that I've implemented into my business would be successful in any market. Right. So market is pretty crazy right now, but it depends on which way you look at it, man. I mean, I have a lot of pre-approved buyers out there right now that can't find a home. So I'm not making money off of them. Yeah. And they can't find a home because the market's so crazy. If the market was, more conservative, like you said, or if it was like a more regular of a market, maybe they could have found a home and I would have made money off of that transaction. So it's like a give and take.
So if you don't mind, can you break down some of the practices that you think can last throughout any market?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, just developing really good relationships with realtors. That's key. In any market, there's always going to be people buying and selling homes. And if you're connected with the right people, and realtors are what drives my business, man. I couldn't thank them enough. I really look at it as like I'm forever indebted to them. Right? Because I want to serve them the best way possible. Of course, I provide a service that I believe in, but they're really, on the front line, putting in a lot of legwork in the beginning. And, I'm very appreciative of their support. So I think that the relationships that I've been able to build and I continue to build is sustainable in any market. Plus, no matter what market we're in, Max Fisch is Max Fisch. You get what I'm saying? So the way that I treat people, the way that I am, the way that I work doesn't change.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like a really simple answer.
No,
but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So that's
And I also feel like that dates back to like your spirituality.
Spirituality. Yeah. I got you.
Yeah. So were you always like a connection builder in high school? Because right now, I mean, you have real estate agents like free advertising. I have like 3 cards like in my wall just to hand it out.
Yeah.
So it's like how do you brand yourself?
As far as branding myself to, like, how do I market myself to realtors?
Not even to realtors, but to like other people. Like, because the fact that like you have a ton of realtors.
Yeah.
I think there's 2 questions in that. Do you want to start with how he was in high school, and then were you always a connection person, and the spirituality piggyback off of that?
I feel like looking back on it, I've always been a connection person, but the key to it, I think, the main point of that is I didn't know I was a connection person. And that goes back to the sales part, right? Because I didn't make connections because I thought that I could get something out of it. Like, I'm going to need to know this person. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, maybe they'll help me later on in life. I legitimately and genuinely have just always been like, I'll just walk into somewhere and just, you're like that. You're like that more than I am. But I'll just walk into somewhere and just like talk to everyone.
Yeah.
And I think it also helped that I've lived in Coral Springs my entire life.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I've never moved out of Coral Springs. So the things I do, I'm very like a predictable person. I just do the same things over and over again.
Yeah.
The things I do and the places I go, I know everyone because I've been here my whole life.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Well, then, yeah.
So it's really been like, just like, partially because I am just like a social person naturally and I just like to talk to a lot of people, but also partially because I've been in this area for so long that I haven't really had to, like be active in going out and building relationships. It just happened over time.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. Now, since you work with Nationwide, have you ever thought about like starting your own mortgage business? And I think I brought this up, but I didn't think we went into like depth with the conversation. So like, could you see yourself as like Max Fisher Mortgage Company? Period.
Well, I couldn't see myself as Max Fisher because my last name's Fisch.
Fish.
But
I get that wrong twice. I get that wrong twice.
No, I'm kidding. Everybody does that, by the way.
Okay.
It's always in the back of your mind to want to start, your own brokerage and your own thing. Nationwide Mortgage is not nationwide. It's just a small brokerage out of Coral Springs. We do have a branch up in Jacksonville, but it's a small brokerage up in Coral Springs, and there's room to develop within that, right? So I have my team, okay, and so I can be a leader of my team. But the guys I work with, they did right by me in the beginning, right? And they are totally on board with me growing my business and me building my business and developing the Nationwide brand and developing my own brand, right? They're not handicapping me in any way. So hopefully, at some point in my career, the dynamic can turn more into a partnership, right? But I don't at this moment in time have any desire to branch out and quote unquote do my own thing, which in real estate or being a mortgage broker, you're always doing your own thing.
Yeah.
You just have your license plate somewhere. But I don't have a desire to go out and branch off and do my own thing and open my own brokerage, because there is something to be said, like we talked about, there is something to be said in loyalty. And if you're not handicapping yourself and they're not handicapping you, why look at it selfishly?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just because why? It literally, the only difference would be that I have my own name that I made up and I created. It's all I.
And you see that story so many times in the business world where
exactly.
They're like, I'm on my own now, like I'm ready, and then
it literally does nothing for you financially. It's all about clout, and to be honest with you, I don't really care about that.
Got you. And then when I thought about Nationwide, I thought about like the dynasty, like the insurance company.
Yeah.
I thought about like there's a Nationwide for like a mortgages.
Like Peyton Manning's commercials.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Well, okay, but now like Nationwide's like kind of like Blue Realty, where there's only like 2 offices.
Correct.
And like so, it's like with Blue Realty, once you get in the business for so long, they're allowing you like to expand to your own office.
Exactly.
Like being a part of the team, but also kind of doing your own thing with your own team. So would you perhaps maybe consider that?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I mean, I have my own team. I hire my own people. But as far as like a physical office, I mean, I have offices. I have like 3 or 4 different offices.
Yeah.
But it's not really a need right now because the corporate office is right down the street. If I lived in Jacksonville or I lived in Tampa and I wanted to be a part of Nationwide, I would create an office there.
Oh.
So my production at this point has definitely warranted opening a new office. It's just not practical. Why would I open an office 2 miles away from the other one?
Yeah.
So I'm really not. I don't get caught up in like I said, in the clout of all that extra stuff. I just want to do a good job and build my business and eventually get to a point where my family is financially independent. So.
Yeah. I respect that, and like I definitely want to like I tell my mom this all the time because she like hates that I'm not the A student in school.
Yeah.
That I'm not like the top of my class. That I told her straight up, I'm like, I don't want to go to college, and it's like. I would tell her what I'm doing right now, but the fact is like she believes in her head if you don't go to college, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah.
So I mean, but again, like that's like the mindset of like,
which is what we're taught.
Yeah,
it's not
correct.
their fault. It's just everybody pushes that.
Definitely.
Correct. But like I was saying, like I mean, again, me personally, like I can't tell you how blessed I am to be working with Steve.
Yeah.
And if you guys don't know, Steve's one of the owners of Blue Realty. And it's just crazy. It's just crazy. And I mean, at least with that being said, like since I love the company so much, like you love Nationwide, like I really do plan on being a part of the team and then like expanding my own offices.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just an option.
Yeah. You got a whole career ahead of you.
I know.
So speaking of that, what would you say for people, because you're 26, right?
I am.
First question: do you feel like you're old, or do you still feel like you're super young?
I've always been an old soul. So, like I told you, Steve was one of them. I know we brought up Steve a lot, but he's one of them. That was 8, 9 years older than me.
Yeah.
What 15-year-old do you know that's hanging out with 24-year-olds? You
True.
know what I mean?
Yeah, none.
I was just always odd like that. I don't like hanging out with people my own age.
I was the same way. Yeah.
So I just don't like it. So I feel like I've always been sort of like an old soul. It's really pushed me to be better, at any stage of my life. If you're 20 hanging out with a 30-year-old, well, 30-year-old has seen stuff, been through stuff that you haven't. And that's developed them into who they are.
Yeah.
So if you surround yourself with those people, naturally you're just going to, I believe you're just going to be years ahead of people your age.
Exactly.
That's how I view it.
Exactly.
Do you feel like you wasted any time before you got into mortgages, or do you feel like everything was meant to be to lead you to where you were? Or do you think it just is?
Yeah, well, like I said, I think, I wish I would have gotten into this earlier. But I do think if I really dissect it and look back on it, I do think that the stops I had helped develop me into somebody who was going to be good at this. One thing that I forgot to tell you that I did was I was a personal trainer as well. And I mentioned that because being a personal trainer is kind of the same idea as being, a realtor or mortgage. What you're doing, what makes you a good personal trainer is when you feel like that you could really help your client, that what you're doing and your knowledge can really help them, okay, health-wise. Well, now what I feel like I'm doing is my knowledge and what I can do and what I'm doing personally in my own life can help my client financially. So it's the same idea, just a different avenue, if that makes sense. So things like that, I look back on, I'm like, I really am glad that I did that, because now I can kind of use some of those skills to, kind of gear into a different avenue or a different path.
Got it. And so you taught what grade at school?
I taught high school, like beginning high school math, algebra 1 and geometry.
Yeah.
And I taught my first 2 years of teaching. I was a K through 8 PE teacher. And then I did, I've coached elementary sports all the way through varsity football. I was a head coach and a defensive coordinator.
Gotcha. And so do you still keep in touch with any of your students, like past students?
Yeah, some of them.
Okay.
Like on social media and things like that. It's weird now because I feel like I'm getting old. My first year of teaching, they were 8th grade and now they're seniors in high school.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So it feels weird.
Yeah, for sure.
It was only 4 years ago, but it just feels strange.
Yeah.
Because I look at them, I'm like, oh, you like annoying little middle schooler, and now you're going to college.
Yeah.
It's just it's funny. It's like if I taught you, you're going to be a senior. So it's like if I taught you in 8th grade, 7th grade.
Yeah.
Just strange dynamic. So I do keep up with some of them.
Got it. And have any of the high schoolers ever asked you for like a mortgage?
No, not yet. But
Okay.
Speaking of networking, maybe in the future they'll definitely think of me. But maybe they'll always look at me as their teacher. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I was actually speaking about like the whole networking idea. I told Steve, since next year I'm gonna be a senior, to wrap my car in blue, and here's the reason why. I told him because of the fact that most moms drop their kids off, and dads, they're going to be empty nesters next year, meaning that their kid's going to be at the house in college. So it's just kind of like an opportunity of me swooping in and being like, hey, licensed real estate agent working for the best broker.
That's actually a really funny that like at a high school you would have like your blue realty card. And like when I was in high school, nobody was like in business. Like the biggest business that people did in high school would bring like a bunch of shoe boxes to school and like sell them to kids, but like nobody was like, hey, I'm a realtor, I'll buy you a house, or I'll not buy you a house, but I'll get you a house.
Technology has really fast forwarded this generation.
Yeah, I know.
Because like who has access to people like that? When you can like go on social media, DM the best realtor and say, hey, I'd like to work with you for like 20 minutes.
I know.
You couldn't do that a couple of years ago.
No.
I mean, I just kind of like knocked on like 20 other brokerages until Steve answered, and like he said, like sit down and start working. I said, okay.
Good.
So, but yeah, I mean, that'd be kind of funny if I'm selling real estate while I am doing that right now.
That's a boss move.
Yeah, it is.
That's a flex.
It's kind of boss. But
I'd love that. That'd be funny.
So you played football your entire high school career?
No.
Wait, I forgot. We talked about this. You only played for like a year.
I grew up in sports. I played travel basketball. I played football all the way up. In high school, early on in high school, I decided I was going to just pursue basketball. So I started playing basketball, travel basketball and things of that nature. But then I started to work out a little bit. I liked working out, and I gained 100 pounds from 9th to 10th grade. 100 pounds. That's not an exaggeration.
Okay.
I went into 9th grade about 115 pounds.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
And then I was plus 200 in 10th grade.
Hold up, break that down. So
yeah, how does one make that happen? Like realistically, like
I grew 10 inches.
Okay.
In 1 year.
Well, that helps.
Yeah.
I grew 10 inches and I just started working out. And I know you're looking at me like you don't believe me, but we have a lot of mutual friends. You can actually ask them.
Okay.
What was your diet?
I just started eating a ton, and I really I fell in love kind of like with exercise. It like helped me. It was not just physical. It was like mental for me. It made me feel better.
Yeah.
Right. So when I gained all that weight and I got bigger, I lost like certain things in basketball. Like I couldn't. You know what I mean? Like the same things.
Could you like a layup anymore?
No, I mean I could still do that, and I could still shoot, but like dribbling and your range of motions just got different.
Completely.
You know what I mean? And
yeah.
and it kind of threw it off. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go play football, because I played both growing up, and I wanted to focus on one thing in high school. So first it was basketball, then it was football. I went to play football. I dislocated my shoulder. I've had every injury in the book. I mean, torn ligaments in my knees and ankles and shoulders. I was just so injury prone all the time. So then like when I did that, I was just kind of like, why am I doing this? Like I'm not trying to it's fun. Don't get me wrong. I love sports, but I'm like, I'm not trying to go to like the NFL. My grades are really good. I can get in on a full ride with academically. Like what's the, there's no really purpose for me. So after school, I would work out. I would go to work. I worked as a delivery driver at Pepperoni Grill in Coral Springs.
Damn.
And so I could save some money.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. Kind of exercising became my sport, in high school and into college.
And also, see, when you said about saving money, what was the first asset that you ever bought? Was it a stock? Was it a car? Was it investment property?
It was my car.
Okay.
Yeah. Senior year of high school, that was the first major purchase. And then I didn't buy like another major asset, like no stocks, nothing, until I purchased my current home 2 years ago.
Got it.
Yeah.
And is that purchase with your wife?
Yeah, I mean, I purchased it before we got married, a little bit before we got married. But yeah, we sort of, we picked it out together, and we sort of worked it out financially together, starting off. So
since I don't really know how this works too much, so if you get a house and then you get married, do you guys co-op, like share the house, like 50-50 now? Or will it always be your asset, your house?
No. When we get married, everything is shared. But we don't look at it that way. I mean, all of our stuff is 100% each of ours. Right? So that's, I think that's...
No, I get that, but I was asking for more like the legal terms.
Oh, legally? Well, I'm the only one on the mortgage.
Yeah, so if you're paying off the mortgage every month, then technically, legally speaking, like that will always be your asset, regardless of the fact.
So, well, it's a good question, because there are two parts of purchasing and owning a house. I'm on the mortgage, so I'm the only one liable. It's not on her credit report. I'm liable for the property, but we're both... Meaning,
like liable as in like you have to pay you have to pay it every month.
Like it doesn't matter where the payment's coming from. It can come from her account, but let's say I stop making the payments, right? And nobody's making payments on my house. It's not going to affect her at all. It's only going to affect me.
Got it.
Because I'm the only one liable for that property. But we're both on title, so we're both part owners. But I'm the only one liable. So I don't know if you guys know that. You can have whoever you want on title. I can buy a house and get a mortgage under my name and put you on title. So now we're both owners in the property, but I'm the only one liable.
So other than a relationship, what benefit does that do to the other person?
To the other person?
To you.
To me?
Yeah.
It doesn't, it doesn't really have any like fiscal advantage. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like we're married and we both, are on title and ownership of the house. And she has the right to obtain ownership if anything were to happen to me and sell and things of that nature.
Got it. And since you probably know this better than I do, is there any advantages to getting married? Like, is there better tax benefits? Is it easier for one of you guys to buy something and the other co-signs? Like,
yeah, I mean, there's advantages to. I mean, you could always have a co-signer even if you're not married. You can both be on the loan, and but obviously there's advantages. I guess in theory, that if you're not married, there's nothing really binding you to each other. So like you don't, if you wanted to walk away, you could walk away, and yeah, you might take a hit on your credit report, but that's it. There's no, you don't have any like privilege or anything like that to their assets or to anything like that. So I guess there's an advantage of when you're married, there's more responsibility on both parties, and that can create, more of a commitment. Does that make sense? Like to the property and to your assets and to all of your liabilities.
But there's no tax benefits?
That's an interesting question. I wouldn't want to lead you astray with my answer. I can tell you what I think. I do think that there are some tax benefits when you file jointly, but don't hold me to that because I'm not an accountant. Okay, so that would be more of a question for an accountant.
I mean, but you got married for like 2 years now, so you never just
but you don't. I mean, listen. At the end of the day, when we first got married, I was a teacher. She's a teacher. We just filed our taxes on freaking Credit Karma and plugged in information that was on our W-2s, and it spit out a tax return to us.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like I'm just being honest with you. I didn't get like into like, oh, now that I'm married, how can I save money on my wife?
Yeah.
I wasn't making enough money to care about saving money.
Okay.
So you know what I mean? Like, because like it's always a percentage of what you're making. So what was I going to save? Like $50? Like I don't know.
Wait, so when you married your wife, were you at the position you were today?
No. I was, like I said, I was a teacher. And I had no aspirations to really be anything else other than work in a school and to be an athletic director.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's wild.
And she married me anyways.
Wow.
So
how did she take it when you wanted to transition to something else?
My wife is very supportive. And so she kind of just said, well, if you're going to do it, do it. Like, don't like half do it. Don't like stay a teacher and do this like half of the time. She's like, just do it then,
So then when was the point of quitting?
Of teaching?
Yes, correct.
Well, I quit. I told teaching is a school calendar year. So it's hard you can't just like leave in January be like, I'm leaving because you have a bunch of kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I told them in January of last year. 2020. Okay. I told them that I wasn't coming back.
Wait, this is recent. Whoa.
Yeah, it was last year.
Whoa.
Beginning of last year.
And I know you only had like word lines for you. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was the beginning of last year. So everything I built, I've done in the last year and a half.
Oh my gosh.
So I told them I wasn't coming back anymore, and then it was like a blessing in disguise because COVID hit. So now every teacher is working like half a day from home. You're like doing like you're waking up in the morning. I did a couple of classes, but then at 11:30, I had time for the rest of the day to devote towards what I was now going to be doing.
Correct.
So I was able to like kind of phase out of teaching easily, wake up, just do a couple of classes in the morning, and then jump into mortgages. And for the first couple of days, I was calling like 200 realtors a day. Yeah, like some crazy number. And they told me to screw off most of the time, but there was a couple of them that I work with to this day just because I called them.
Yeah, and then also since you started so young, like, where do you like truly see yourself in 5 years?
Well, first off, I see myself personally starting a family. I mean, I'm already married. Obviously, she's part of my family, but expanding our family. But financially, I'm hoping that in 5 years, I am able to live off of passive income, like we're talking about. That's my goal. My goal is to not have to wake up every day and go earn a dime. That I can make money while I'm sleeping.
Have you heard of FIRE?
No.
It's this investing community where you start when you're 20, and like you can start anytime, but the premise is you start when you're 20 and you end when you're 30.
Mm-hmm.
And then you basically create this nest egg of almost like mutual funds and dividends and different things that you can do. And then you can retire by your 30, but what most people do, they retire so they can spend the rest of their lives really focused on what they really want to do. They don't have to pay types of job. It's more for people that work really tough corporate jobs that they just hate their life.
Yeah.
But I was just wondering if you knew anything about that, because that's a
No,
really
I
quick
don't.
goal of
But
5 years.
I'll look into it. I mean, yeah, that's my goal because, like I said, I'm blessed to be doing the business I'm doing right now. So I'm building wealth. I'm building capital. And I just really need to be picky in the next couple of years of where I put that, because I think that, where I delegate that money, I think in 5 years, that's a realistic goal to be able to start reaping the benefits of that.
Correct.
Now, that's not to say, you don't work at all, because maybe you want to sustain a certain level of income to be able to, support the kind of lifestyle that you want to live. So maybe you're making passive income and you could live off of that in a certain way, but maybe you want to experience other things. You want to travel more. You want to do this. So, I'm not saying in 5 years I don't want to work
more of
anymore.
like financial freedom.
Correct. I'm not saying in 5 years I don't want to work anymore. I'm saying in 5 years I don't want to have to work.
Yeah.
Correct. Like if I
just making options.
If I stripped everything down in my life, could I live off of the passive income that I'm making?
That's fair.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Like, you don't have to answer this because it's kind of touchy, but could you break down like when you have money coming in, how do you break down your finances? What goes where, and what goes to like future goals? What goes to like now expenses? I'm just so curious like how you break down your finances, especially with a business that is in a set salary.
So have you ever heard of Dave Ramsey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So his philosophy, and to be honest with you, I don't follow everything.
Yeah.
But
did you read his book?
Yeah. Yeah, I've read all of his books. But to his philosophy of every dollar needs a place, I believe in that.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I try to delegate every dollar. Whether some of that is to savings. You know what I mean? But as long as it has a category, as long as it's not just sitting there, you have to actively put it into a category. So when money comes in, obviously the first thing, housing bill, electricity, food. Food's actually the first thing. Then housing, electricity, and then all of the necessities. And then after that is just, extra. Like, hey, we have a certain amount of money. We only said we wanted to save this. Maybe we could throw a little bit more in the savings and take a little bit extra and enjoy ourselves. That's how I look at it. And that is what I was referring to when I'm saying passive income. When I want passive income to cover the necessities.
Yeah.
This stuff over here that's extra, I have no problem working for that stuff. But I don't want to have to get up every day and work for the necessities. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you're in the rat race.
Yeah. And it'll drive you nuts. I mean, this business, I've only been in it a year and a half, but there's some days like you don't want to be on that grind until you're 55.
How do you handle that? The really, really rough days.
Well, the rough days for me, I had some mentors in the industry tell me I was going to do well in this business because I care so much. And the roughest days for me in this business is when things are going wrong. I don't care at that point in a transaction or in a deal. It's not ever in my head like I just missed out on $5,000. It's always I either messed up or something's going wrong or I can't believe this is happening for the client because they're so stressed out. It's the biggest purchase of their life, right? Mm-hmm. And there's so many people's money on the line. The realtor, the client, the title company, the insurance agent, and the mortgage is like the hub for all those areas because the mortgage needs to see title work, insurance work, documents from the realtor, documents from the buyers, right? So I feel like some days it's not like an overwhelming feeling of I just have so much going on. It's more of like I feel so bad that maybe something is going wrong or something is happening that it like bugs me to the core. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
And that's really like affected me at certain times. Like so much so where I'm like, I literally just need to remove this, or there's certain points where I can't focus on anything else until this problem's solved. That's the biggest day-to-day issue that I have. But people in other stages of their life, if I had kids, if I had, you know, a big family that I needed to support and times weren't as good as they are now, different stresses would arise. I just haven't had to experience those, you know?
Yeah.
Like if you don't have a deal coming in, where's your money coming from?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that's why
and
want
you
to passively.
You have kids to take care of and, you know, a family to support.
So I was talking to Steve, and he says that we were talking about this yesterday in the car. He was like, the one thing that I want is I want to buy property every single year. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you're looking forward into?
Yeah, him and I share, you know, super similar goals, and that's why we're getting into this business together. And I think that's a goal that we share. That's what we talked about in a lot of our meetings up front. Is that that's what our goal is. But obviously, we want to. Him and I work well together in the sense that I'm a little bit more conservative. He is a little bit more like get leverage. You know, and so I think there's a balance and a calculated balance of, you know, you want to acquire assets, but you don't want to over leverage yourself.
Correct.
You can't. I mean, that would be very risky.
Like what you explained in 08.
Yeah. And listen, there are people that over leverage themselves, like Grant Cardone. He does that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And
like
they make
like
and they make a ton of money, and they're fine using debt to earn money, and that's fine. I agree with that. That's where me and Dave Ramsey,
I was about to say
Veer. I agree with that. I understand that the structure, but I also am a little bit more like calculated and like
I like that.
I don't really like want to overdo it.
Yeah, when you mentioned Dave Ramsey, I was kind of okay. So is that where you stand? Because he's very by only cash,
Correct.
No leverage. I was like, there's a little bit of balance to it, but
and don't get me wrong, Steve is not. He is not like just like wild, like going out like not calculated, buying every property. I'm just saying
it's just how much you can stomach.
I'm just saying that if I look at it, it's like, okay, a property every year. I mean, well, I could potentially have 60 more years of my life.
That sounds fair.
You know, I don't know if I'm going to do that, but
yeah,
you know, that's the goal initially.
Okay.
We share that goal for sure.
I like that. I like that. Well, I mean, to be honest, this was a fantastic podcast.
I'm stoked. This is so cool.
And I honestly thought you were great. And
thank you guys.
Just to wrap things up, would you like to plug any social medias, any phone number, any email? What's the best way to contact you and maybe get in touch?
Yeah, so my Instagram is the most active. You can follow me on Instagram at maxfisch, MAXFISCH_mortgages. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, just under my personal name, Max Fisch. And my phone number is 954-729-6933. If you guys ever need anything, have any questions, home ownership, in my opinion, is one of the best investments that you can make. So
correct.
So if you guys need anything, that's where you can find me.
It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you so much.